Welcome back, everyone. Michael here with Offshore Citizen, and today we're going to talk about banking in Montenegro, offshore banking in Montenegro. So, before we get started, if you have any interest in these subjects at all, please click the subscribe button, click the notification bell, and you'll be able to check out our other videos, and let's get started. Okay, so there was a period of time when the traditional offshore banking jurisdictions were starting to go into disfavor. So for instance, Cayman Islands, etc., they were getting to be harder to bank in, or they were just not an option. Caledonian went down and things like this. So at that point in time, it became fairly popular to start looking for different places to bank. This was also around the time that FATCA was coming in, then the CRS, and so on and so forth. If you have any interest in knowing what those things are, I have some other videos on them, you can check them out. Montenegro potentially was one example of one of these places that you could have looked into at the time, okay? And there were some people who came here and opened up bank accounts, and for a bunch of those people that didn't turn out so good. Two of the major banks last year went down, not major banks, two of the banks, two of the local banks, I wouldn't really call them major, Atlas Banka and Invest Banka, both went down. People, they were covered by deposit insurance up to, I think it was 50,000 euros per account. And so, a bunch of people didn't lose money, but you had the hassle of you had to physically come to Montenegro, which is not particularly easy. You had to get cash, then you had to do something with the cash. Either you're going to travel with over, well, if you had over 10,000 euros, you're either traveling with that, which has a certain risk to it, or you're going to take it and you're going to try and put it into some other bank. And unfortunately, the situation with opening bank accounts in Montenegro has gotten quite a bit harder for people who are not residents. If you're a resident, it's not a problem. But if you are a non-resident, it is much more difficult. There are far fewer options than there used to be. There is also, it used to be you could open for offshore companies. You virtually can't do that anymore. It's quite difficult in most cases, okay? So there may be one bank here or there with connections, things like this, but the reality is that a lot of the banks here are foreign owned and they have rules imposed by from Austria or places like that. So not really a great option. This being said, let's talk about if you were to open a bank account, because you can come here pretty easily. You can open up a bank account or a company. You can get a bank account personally for the company. You can get a residency card, all these things. This is not that difficult to do. In fact, it's quite easy. So should you do that? Generally, my advice is do not bank in Montenegro. It's a horrible place to bank. It's one of the drawbacks of this country for sure. You do not really want to do that. And I'll give you some examples of why not. So first of all, you can pay pretty exorbitant fees. Say if you have a debit card and you're trying to use it abroad, depending on the bank, there's obviously lots of different options, but they'll charge like a percentage of each transaction as some sort of a fee, which is just nuts, right? So not good in that regard. Then I find so long as you're sending wires that are like under 10,000 euros, or if you have contacts in the bank and you know people locally and you are here so you can actually go into the bank, okay, then maybe not so bad. But if you are abroad and you're trying to use the online banking to send large transfers, you may be in big trouble. So to give you some idea, we were doing some transfers from here last year, and it was an absolute nightmare, just total garbage. Here's what would happen. So you would go onto the online banking portal, and you would say, okay, great, I want to send this, and they would ask for some documentation. No problems, right? You provide, invoice, whatever it is that the documentation is. So then we'd get an email from them saying, hey, we need documentation. Like, well, we already provided you with documentation, but okay. Then we'd hear nothing, and the money would just show up back in the account. You would call the help center, the call center line, which you have to understand, these are typically small banks, so as a result, their availability is not great, right? Plus you're calling long distance somewhere, not great. And so you do that, and they say, oh, sorry, yeah, I don't know anything about that department, I can't help. So not a great place to be doing it. Pretty much in general, the basic advice that I have for people is don't keep a lot of money here. Don't run a lot of transactions here. It can be great to come and set up a residency, to maybe set up something small. From a tax standpoint, it's quite good. These things are all good. It's a beautiful place to vacation. Okay, wonderful. It might be good for real estate investing, but as a place to run any sort of major operation, any type of place that you want to, do serious banking, I would discourage you from doing it. When clients come to me and ask me about it, I'm just like, no, bad idea. It's like along the lines of Belize and these other places, maybe worse, I don't know. Anyway, not a place that I recommend for banking, and so yeah, I would pretty much leave it at that. So anyway, if you do want help with something like setting up international bank accounts, brokerage accounts, offshore accounts, wealth management, etc., whether it's from Switzerland to Singapore to Georgia to wherever in between, please reach out to us. You can book a call with me for any of these types of issues: tax planning, banking, asset protection, residency, citizenships, company formation, etc. at clarity.fm/Michael Rosmer. You can also check out our websites, offshorecitizen.net, offshorecapitalist.com, and I will see you guys very soon.